Wild hogs are not native to our shores, but they're now here to stay. There are thousands of them, and they're roaming wild all across America, from coast to coast.
For 10,000 years, humanity ran a quiet genetic experiment. We engineered the domestic pig with two ruthless goals: grow massively and breed relentlessly. We built the ultimate meat-producing machines. But when these biological factories escaped into the brutal wild and crossed paths with razor-tusked wild boars, a biological nightmare was born. Scientists call it heterosis, or hybrid vigor. It is the absolute worst-case scenario for our ecosystem. We are talking about an unstoppable beast packing the thick armor of a wild boar, supercharged by the limitless growth genetics of a factory pig. With zero natural predators, they are bulldozing through North America, causing billions in crop damage every single year. But this economic ruin is just the tip of the iceberg. In early 2024, geneticists unlocked a terrifying secret hidden deep within their DNA, a discovery that changes everything we know about these monsters. Before we crack open this genetic nightmare, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, so you never miss out on the wild truth. For decades, wildlife officials kept patting themselves on the back, whispering the same comforting lie to the public. Relax, these are just escaped farm pigs that grew a bit of hair, and Mother Nature will weed them out in a generation or two. Well, that naive little fairy tale just shattered into a million pieces. In February 2024, Dr. Timothy J. Smizer and his team dropped a bombshell study that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. They analyzed over 1,000 feral pig genomes from across the country. And what they found wasn't just alarming, it was downright chilling. This was no accidental breakout from a broken farm fence. The data proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that these creatures are the product of deliberate, highly calculated breeding programs carried out by humans decades ago. We intentionally crossed tough, aggressive Eurasian wild boars with hyper-fertile domestic swine to create the ultimate game animal for hunting ranches, totally blind to the biological time bomb we were assembling. And here is where the story turns into a real nightmare. You would think that throwing a farm-raised genetic mix into the rugged wilderness would naturally dilute their bad traits, right? You would expect nature to soften them up over time. But nature did the exact opposite. Instead of domesticating these hybrids, the harsh, brutal wilderness is acting like an accelerator. Natural selection is actively picking out, turning on, and supercharging the most primitive, aggressive, and indestructible ancestral genes from the wild boar side. The domesticated DNA gives them mind-boggling size, massive litter numbers, and explosive growth rates, while the wild boar DNA equips them with bone-crushing jaws, thick protective hide, and an ice-cold instinct for survival. It is an evolutionary feedback loop, where only the absolute nastiest, smartest, and toughest survive and multiply. To really wrap your head around how terrifying this genetic cocktail is, take a quick trip back to the 1950s. Remember the Africanized honeybee disaster? Researchers in Brazil tried to cross docile European bees with hyper-aggressive African bees to boost honey production. A few queens escaped, and within years, killer bees swarmed across whole continents, attacking anything that moved. The genetic mechanics behind what we are seeing right now with these super pigs are identical. We took two distinct lines of DNA, mixed them together, lost control, and triggered an unstoppable biological chain reaction. But there is one massive, terrifying difference. We are not talking about a tiny insect that weighs a fraction of a gram. We are talking about hyper-intelligent, apex-level invasive behemoths that can easily top 400 pounds and smash through solid steel fencing like it is made of cardboard. Before we dive deeper into how these beasts are spreading, I gotta ask, where are you watching this video from? Please tell us your country or city in the comments and let's explore together. Now picture this. You have an apex hybrid machine with limitless growth potential, an appetite that never stops, and a reproductive rate that borders on science fiction. What happens when you drop an unstoppable force like that straight into an absolute paradise where food is completely unlimited, the climate is soft, and every single natural predator that could ever pose a threat to them has already been wiped off the map by humans? Step straight into the heart of the American South, and you will quickly realize why this region turned into the ultimate launchpad for the super pig invasion. States like Texas, Georgia, and Louisiana might as well be an all-you-can-eat buffet custom built for a giant invasive species. We are talking about vast stretches of land covered in dense hardwood forests, endless agricultural fields, and swamps packed to the brim with high-calorie food. During the fall and winter, mature oak and pecan trees drop millions of tons of rich nuts right onto the forest floor. In the spring and summer, agricultural crops like corn, peanuts, sorghum, and soybeans line the landscape for miles on end. For a normal wild animal, finding food is a daily life or death struggle. But for these super pigs, every single season brings a brand new feast. They can devour thousands of calories in a single night without breaking a sweat, turning that pure energy directly into dense body mass, thick protective fat layers, and non-stop reproductive output. However, unlimited food is only half of this terrifying equation. The real catalyst behind their explosive population explosion is something far more unnatural: the total collapse of nature's police force. To understand how we got into this mess, you have to look back at what humans did to the North American landscape over the last century. In an attempt to protect livestock, ranches, and human settlements, people systematically hunted, trapped, and wiped out the native apex predators of the South. The red wolf was driven to functional extinction in the wild, and mountain lions were pushed completely out of their historic eastern range. By removing those large carnivores, we accidentally swept the board clean of every single biological obstacle standing in the way of the super pig. In a healthy, balanced ecosystem, predators act as a crucial check on herbivore and omnivore populations. They target the young, the sick, and the weak, keeping herd numbers manageable and forcing prey animals to stay constantly on the move, which prevents overgrazing. But without wolves or big cats roaming the woods, the natural biological limits placed on these hybrids completely dissolved. Without predators patrolling the landscape, the survival rate for super pig piglets shot up to nearly 100%. A single sow can drop a litter of 6 to 12 piglets twice a year, and under normal circumstances, predators would snatch up the majority of those vulnerable babies within their first few weeks of life. But in this predator-free environment, almost every single piglet grows into a healthy, breeding adult. Even worse, the mature adult pigs no longer face any pressure to hide, run, or conserve energy. They do not have to waste precious calories staying vigilant against a hunting pack. They simply spend their entire lives doing three things: eating non-stop, breeding continuously, and piling on muscle and weight until they die of old age. When you combine an endless buffet of high-calorie crops with a complete lack of natural enemies, you create a biological snowball effect that quickly spirals out of control. Entire sounders of 30 or 40 pigs roll through farms like living bulldozers, tearing up root systems, contaminating water sources, and wiping out local wildlife populations in a matter of hours. Local farmers and wildlife managers trap and shoot hundreds of thousands of them every single year, but it barely makes a dent. For every pig removed from the field, 3 more are born to take its place. At this point, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, sure, the warm, sunny American South is a paradise for them, but surely a brutal northern winter would put a freeze on their progress. You would think that sub-zero temperatures, feet of snow, and freezing winds would easily wipe out a creature that thrives in southern swamps. Well, if you believe that a little cold weather is going to stop this juggernaut in its tracks, you are drastically underestimating what this creature is truly capable of doing when evolution steps in. For the longest time, wildlife experts looked at the frozen northern border and felt a false sense of security. They believed the punishing Canadian winter, where temperatures routinely plunge to a bone-chilling -40 degrees Fahrenheit, would act as a natural frozen wall, a hard barrier stopping these animals dead in their tracks. Tropical and temperate creatures simply are not supposed to survive that kind of brutal, relentless freezing cold. But these super pigs looked right at that icy barrier and came up with a genius, terrifying solution that left biologists completely stunned. The Pigloo. In 2024, groundbreaking research led by Dr. Ryan Brook shed light on this astonishing survival strategy. When winter hits the Canadian prairies and buries the landscape under feet of snow, these pigs do not freeze to death or starve. Instead, they use their rock-hard snouts like living excavators to dig deep, elaborate tunnels straight into the massive snowdrifts. Once inside, they line the icy floors with dry cattails and vegetation they pull from frozen marshes. Then the magic of biology kicks in. A herd of these massive pigs piles into the snow cave together, packing in shoulder to shoulder. The immense heat radiating from their body fat gets trapped inside the packed snow walls, turning a freezing blizzard outside into a surprisingly cozy, insulated snow cave. Inside these Pigloos, the temperature stays warm enough for them to sleep, rest, and raise newborn piglets, while a deadly Arctic storm rages just inches above their heads. They literally transform the very snow meant to kill them into a protective shield. And this freezing northern environment triggered an even more dangerous evolutionary shift. Up in the deep cold, natural selection works with brutal efficiency. Small, thin pigs with thin layers of fat do not make it through a dark 6-month winter. The cold environment actively favors giant body mass. According to a fundamental biological rule known as Bergmann's rule, animals living in colder climates tend to evolve much larger bodies because a bigger size retains core body heat far better than a small frame. The result? The super pigs roaming the Canadian wilderness have evolved into massive behemoths. Researchers have documented individuals tipping the scales at an astonishing 638 pounds. We are talking about absolute tanks covered in thick, dark bristles, carrying layers of fat several inches deep, completely unbothered by sub-zero temperatures. And that brings us to the nightmare scenario unfolding across the continent today. The United States is currently trapped in a terrifying biological pincer movement. Down in the south, millions of hyper-fertile hybrid pigs are rapidly expanding their territory northward, tearing up farmland and dominating the countryside. Meanwhile, up north, these cold-hardened, massive super pigs are steadily pushing south across the Canadian border into states like North Dakota, Minnesota, and Montana. Two massive waves of invasive super pigs are marching toward each other, threatening to merge into a single, unstoppable national crisis. Yet, as reports of these massive northern beasts flood in from farmers, truckers, and outdoor enthusiasts, a fascinating skepticism remains within the scientific community. It creates a strange paradox that leaves many people scratching their heads. If these creatures are truly as widespread and monstrously huge as everyone claims, why hasn't a scientific journal published an official, lab-verified photo of a 1,000-pound super pig sitting on a certified scale? Why do we see tons of grainy game camera clips, wild farm stories, and incredible hunter photos, but an official, rock-solid scientific proof of a half-ton monster seems so elusive? Are these 1,000-pound behemoths actually creeping through the dark timber? Or are we just listening to tall tales cooked up around campfire hunting stories? To understand why scientists lack official lab-weight data on a 1,000-pound super pig, you have to realize one fundamental truth. Modern science demands pristine, verified proof, but these creatures are far too smart to ever become lab specimens. The lack of official weight records isn't proof that these giant behemoths don't exist. It is proof of the incredible stealth, intelligence, and survival instincts built directly into their DNA. First of all, look at how these massive prime boars actually live out in the wild. The giant pigs that reach extreme physical size do not travel in large sounders with piglets and young sows. Once a boar gets truly massive, it abandons the herd entirely and turns into a solitary ghost. They melt away into the deepest, nastiest, most impenetrable swamps and thickets on the continent. On top of that, they become almost completely nocturnal. They do not move around during daylight hours when scientists, wildlife officers, or casual hunters are out looking for them. They wait until the dead of night, slipping through pitch-black timber under the cover of dense fog. Then you have to factor in their mind-blowing intelligence. Pigs are easily among the smartest mammals on the planet, easily outsmarting domestic dogs and rivaling primates in problem-solving abilities. A mature boar that has survived several hunting seasons learns the game inside and out. Their sense of smell is legendary, allowing them to pick up the faint scent of human sweat, gun oil, or the cold metallic sheen of a steel trap from hundreds of yards away downwind. If a researcher sets up a cage trap or a remote camera rig in the woods, a veteran boar won't just avoid it. It will completely abandon that entire square mile of territory for weeks. And even on the rare occasion when a hunter or landowner manages to actually shoot one of these gigantic solitary boars, science immediately runs into a massive logistical nightmare. Imagine dropping a half-ton animal in the middle of a knee-deep, muddy Louisiana swamp or a thick pine forest miles away from the nearest paved road. You cannot just pick up a 500-pound carcass and slide it into the back of a pickup truck. It takes winches, heavy machinery, and multiple strong adults just to move the body a few feet. Dragging a certified industrial scale into a bug-infested, treacherous swamp isn't something researchers can do on a whim. To make matters worse, time is the ultimate enemy. Down in the hot, humid climate of the American South, biological decomposition sets in at an alarming speed. Within just a few hours in 90-degree heat, a giant carcass inflates with gas, rots, and gets completely consumed by insects and scavengers. By the time a wildlife biologist gets the phone call, packs up certified measuring equipment, and drives out to a remote rural location, the window of opportunity has completely closed. We saw this exact chaotic scenario play out with the legendary case of Hogzilla back in Georgia. When a local hunter shot a mind-bogglingly huge wild hog, the story exploded across global news headlines. But without an official team of scientists on site with certified scales, skeptics immediately dismissed the entire event as an exaggerated hunter tale. By the time experts from National Geographic finally arrived to exhume the carcass and extract DNA samples, the body had already been buried under feet of dirt for 5 full months. While the post-exhumation estimates brought the weight down slightly from the original claims, the genetic testing proved something undeniable. Massive, hyper-sized hybrid pigs were actively roaming the deep woods of the South. When you combine their ghost-like stealth, uncanny intelligence, and the brutal logistics of field research, it becomes clear why official science is always 2 steps behind reality. But as these super pig populations explode exponentially across the country, asking how big they can get is quickly becoming the wrong question to focus on. The real question we should be asking ourselves right now is much more urgent and far more terrifying. Do we as humans have any realistic chance left to turn the tide and win this biological war, or have we already lost control forever? Every single year, wildlife agencies draft new distribution maps, and every single year, those bright red warning zones spread out like an unstoppable oil spill. We are culling nearly 400,000 pigs annually, but that massive number represents a mere 6% of their total population. It is a drop in the bucket compared to their explosive breeding rate. This nightmare is a humbling reminder of human arrogance. When we tamper with nature to serve our own greed, we unleash forces we cannot control. It teaches us that every choice we make has a ripple effect, and nature will always find a way to strike back. What do you think about this unstoppable invasion? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button to join our community, and I will see you all in the next video.